Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Chris.
This is Tim.
This is Adam.
And we're going to give our hot takes on the game that we just finished playing, Capital Lux 2 Generations.
Before Tim gets into a description of the game, we're going to make our social media plea. If you enjoy the show and you want more people to find us, you can follow us on Twitter at BG Hot Takes or on Facebook at Board Game Hot Takes for the latest conversations about the games we're playing. If you wouldn't mind, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us to help more people find the show. Let's jump into a description of the game.
All right. In Capital Lux 2 Generations, players are trying to run a thriving base outside of the capital city by working with the 4 regional families, or suits, to earn the most reputation and manipulate the unique skills of that family. This game is played over 3 rounds, and at the beginning of each round, you'll draft 6 cards to start the round. The cards consist of 4 suits, blue, pink, yellow, and green, and they are numbered 2 through 6. On your turn, you'll either play a card into a matching suit column in your base, or you'll play a card into a matching suit column in the capital at the center of the board. When you play the card to the capital, you'll also trigger a unique special ability related to that suit, including things like gaining points, moving cards from the capital to your region, drawing cards, and many others. Each game can be set up with a unique special ability for each suit, and there are 4 abilities for each suit that come with the game. A round ends when a player plays the last card in their hand, and all other players get one final turn. At the end of the round, if a player has more points of a suit in their base than are in the capital, then they bust and discard all cards from that suit. The player with the most points remaining in the suit that didn't bust takes the highest point card from the capital and places it face down next to their base as endgame bonus points. After 3 rounds, players will add up their bonus points and all points remaining in their base, and the player with the most points wins the game. Capital Lux 2 Generations was designed by Elif Svensson and Christian Amundsen Ostby and published by Aporta Games. So let's get into the conversation. And I'm going to start with you, Chris. What did you think of the mechanisms? Why don't you start with a mechanism that you want to talk about right now?
A mechanism. Man, this is a tough one because honestly, well, I'm going to tip my hat here and say that I did not love this game. And in terms of the mechanisms, there were a bunch, and there were, you were doing things throughout the game, but none of them really stuck out at me as being particularly interesting, honestly.
Chris, I love your description of the mechanisms is you were doing stuff during the game.
Well, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like there was, it was interesting when you gave the introduction, you called them suits, not factions, because that's really what it was. It was basically like playing with a deck of cards, and you're trying to throw down tricks. And the attempt at theming, I think, or mechanisms that made it anything other than just a standard card game was basically that you had these capital city abilities. And I guess that's the one thing I could say that really made it stand out to me, is that we played 2 games tonight, a relatively short game. And they were extremely different games, the first one and the second one, because of those different capital city actions that you could take. It really made a world of difference. And honestly, I felt like it changed the game so much. It was almost like playing a different game. But, I guess depending upon how you felt about the mechanisms in the first place, that could either be a good thing or it could be a bad thing.
Chris, I want to ask you, do you have any history of playing more traditional card games, like trick-taking games or rummy or parts or things like that?
I do a little bit, and it probably says a lot that I don't play them because I don't enjoy them.
Okay.
So I will say that, I have to caveat everything that I'm saying here with, I am not a fan of traditional card games. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what I'm saying is not to say that this game was deficient in some way, but that if you are a fan of traditional card games, this feels a lot like one.
Yeah. Okay. That's. I think that's worth noting, because obviously this is not one of our traditional strategy or Euro or Ameritrash games, right? This is definitely has the DNA of a traditional card game in a lot of ways. It adds some fun little things to it. You mentioned the unique faction powers, and that's probably the thing that makes it stand out or doesn't make it feel like a repetitive kind of standard traditional card game, is because each game does play a little bit different from those powers. Let's dig into that a little bit. So we played, we wanted to play 2 games at least, because you do get 4 different powers each time you play. And the first game we played with what is kind of the recommended base set of powers, maybe some of the simpler ones that are out there. And then we played a second game with a different set of powers. So we kind of saw 8 of the 16 powers that are in the deck in the game. Were there any powers that stood out to you guys that you felt really added some fun to that particular hand?
For me, the first round we played with the A set of powers. So in that set, you have these kind of blue octagons, blue stop signs, right? So if you play one of your blue cards, one of your blue suits, factions to the capital, you get to draw on one of these 5 octagons, and they range in values from like, I think, a +4 down to a -2, maybe -3. And you secretly look at it and you get to put it on top of one of the other suits. And that either lowers or raises the value, the final value at the end of that round for that suit. That was kind of neat, a neat element of being able to either inflate one to help yourself out or kind of reduce the number of one to maybe cause someone to bust and lose their entire column of cards. So that was one mechanic that I thought was kind of cool from the A set of powers.
Yeah, and the second set of powers we had did something. It wasn't quite the hidden information like that, but it did allow you to manipulate the decks to kind of change what the deck size was. In that case, it allowed you, I think it was the pink power in that set, that it allowed you to move one of the cards of a lower value from any set into your own score power pile. So you could kind of drastically reduce the power of one set, maybe on somebody who is counting on that, and then add, kind of pump yourself up too. So just, I call that out in addition, because I think both of those, in each game, there was one that really kind of let you manipulate the deck out in the capital. And I thought that definitely added a little bit of fun to, not letting people just be able to count the numbers up and know what was going to be there by the end of the round.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed the game, not to tip my hat, and to speak to the player powers especially. One of them that stood out also, in addition to the ones we talked about, were the coins from the set A, where if you play to the yellow group, the yellow column, you can grab one of these coins. It's either worth 2 points at the end of the game, or you can use it. It's kind of like an insurance policy. You can use it as 1 additional point to up the value of a column, a capital column, and maybe prevent yourself from busting. So you can gather those throughout the course of the game and use them or keep them in your pocket for in-game scoring. I thought that was kind of neat too. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to tip my hat, and you guys are going to be surprised in the final, the final thoughts here. But the one of the mechanisms that I actually liked in the second game that we played too was there was this on the green powers, there was this rocket ship board, this little sideboard that you could play, and basically if you played a card in the green capital, it let you move your rocket ship down this track a certain number of spaces depending on the number of cards. And that one gave you a different bonus based on where your rocket ship ended. But as you moved along the track, there was also some scoring spaces that wouldn't give you a bonus immediately. But if you ended the game on that space, you would get some points on it. And I thought that was just a fun puzzle, right? I mean, in fact, it turned out pretty neat in our game because it was a choice. Like if I'm playing the cards to the city, I'm not playing them in my own base, or in the capital rather. I'm not playing them on my own base, so I'm not getting the points for them. And I ended up really going heavy up that track, dumping a lot of cards into the capital so I could move up that track. But then Adam, he took advantage of that, and he saw that he could basically just keep stacking up green cards in his city. And he didn't have to worry about getting over the cards in the capital. So that was kind of fun. And he ended up scoring really high because of that. I also got like 10 bonus points off that track and got a number of special abilities through it. So it was still positive for me, but it was pretty neat that it wasn't just an obvious, like whoever gets up the track is going to win, which is what I was kind of worried about when we first saw that particular bonus. So that was fun. This is kind of a cool decision space there. And I definitely could see playing it again and saying like, oh, I can see that Adam's playing in the city. I don't want to help him out with that. So maybe I'll put a pause and settle at 5 or 6 points and, start adding some green cards to my own city. It's pretty neat.
Hey, let me ask you guys, was this the capital city goals, did they come as a set, or do you randomly draw them and so they can get mixed up from set to set? How did that work?
So the game, it has these set A, set B, set C, and set D. And I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason for why they organize them that way. And it says kind of once you get used to the game, you can mix them up as you want. So, draw 1 blue one, A through D, and the same for pink, yellow, and green. So you can have whatever, 256 potential combinations of capital city powers.
Okay, because one of the things that I had issue with was that the first set, I felt like they were pretty manageable superpowers there. In the second one, I felt they were a little bit needlessly complex. Like, I think a couple of us mentioned, man, I'm spending the whole time counting. It's like counting, then I'm losing track of what I counted before. And so it's almost like you needed a score sheet to keep track of what everybody was doing. Now, part of that may also be an issue of trying to do it on the online version, the mod, where it's a little bit tough to scroll around the screen constantly keeping track of things. But this really is a game where you have to be counting constantly, not just what you're doing, but what's happening in the capital city and what your opponents are doing as well.
I think there's ways to mitigate that if you're doing it in real life. And we tried to do a little bit on the mod. It was tough. Tried to organize them in groups, by tens to make it a little quick scan. If people did that on their own player board too, you might be able to quickly scan over and see 10 plus whatever additional they have, or 20 plus whatever additional. Might be a little quicker. But yeah, there was indeed a lot of adding up and summing of tiny numbers. So that was a little frustrating. I can totally agree with that, Chris.
Yeah, I do think that would be mitigated in real life. And, Adam trying to help us out in the game, but constantly moving numbers around all over the capital. I don't know that was that helpful. I'm kidding, Adam. That was actually helpful, especially the end game scoring.
Thanks for your service, Adam.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, to kind of settle things out. But I do think it'd be a little easier in person. Like I said, I think if you were playing in person, maybe you would just always slot the highest cards in, in the right location or whatever, kind of number them. And I think it'd be easier just to track. But Chris, I don't think that was related to the specific powers we played in the second round. Like, they may have been a little bit more fiddly of powers, but I don't think they actually changed the amount that we'd have to count. I don't know why we had to do more counting in the second round versus the first necessarily. Maybe just the quantity of cards that came out or something like that. But yeah, they're definitely, I felt it as well. It did felt like it dragged a little bit the last round, especially where everyone was kind of having to recount every column after someone else played to make sure that they weren't going to bust or that they were going to, beat the other players. And you kind of have to count 5 things. You have to count 20 columns, or most of them. You can probably ignore a couple that you're just not close in, but you kind of have to count everybody else's player boards, and you have to count the middle. So you're kind of counting 5 different sets and 4 colors in each set. So it is a lot to have to kind of refresh yourself on each round when it gets back to your turn. And, again, I think in person, you'd be keeping track of that a little bit better as you're playing. Like, it's just easier to see what someone else is doing and kind of just track that. Like, okay, I remember that was there, so I just have to add, a number to it. So I think in person, this would be a much more manageable experience than it was on Tabletopia. I mean, that said, it wasn't that terrible, but it was a lot of math there at the end.
Yeah.
Adam, any other mechanisms that you want to talk about other than the player powers?
Sure. So at the beginning of each round, there's a draft. Everybody gets 6 cards. And what do you guys think about that? Was it significant? Was it not? I still don't really know how much the draft was a player in the whole thing.
It's funny. So I play a lot of Hearts, and Hearts is a trick-taking game. There's like an advanced version of Hearts where you can kind of draft at the beginning. Basically what it is that you get your hand of cards, and you can choose 3 cards to pass. I think it's 3 cards to the pass of the person to your left. So you're not fully drafting your hand, but you are manipulating a little bit. And when I first started playing Hearts, by this time in my Heart experience, after a couple of games, I would have said it doesn't matter at all. It's not going to help me because by the end of the game, you have so little agency over what you're doing. But as I've played more and more and have a little more experience with it, I would say 100%, you can completely change your game by playing your hand out. And I would bet that the draft will matter more with additional plays. I did start to notice that it seemed like almost always the right cards to pick were the highest number cards. So, that could matter if you got a handful of high number cards and someone else got a hand of low number cards, because you just have more control with high number cards. You can, if you've got all high number cards, you can play a high one out to the middle and then another high one on your set and get the most points. Whereas if you have 2 low number cards that you kept, that you're just not helping yourself any better than if you have high number cards. So there is a value to that. And so I think it's probably good that there's a draft there so someone just doesn't end up feeling screwed, over 2 rounds of the 3 or something like that. That said, the draft was pretty quick, which I did like. It was only three passes because it was 6 cards and you take 2 cards in each draft and pass the remaining. And that was really quick. It didn't slow things down too much. And again, I think part of the speed of that was just the fiddliness of us trying to handle it on Tabletopia. In person, I bet that would whip through in, a minute, and then you'd be done with the draft. And it just gives you at least a little bit more control over what you're starting with.
Yeah, it's funny what you said about the high cards, because that was the exact same thing I was thinking as we were playing that, especially going into the second game when we had a little bit of experience with it. And I think also in our second game, the powers in the center city tended to be ones that rewarded higher ranking cards or higher numbered cards. And so, yeah, I was doing the same thing. I was thinking, okay, well, there's really very little benefit in having the lower numbered cards, so just go with the high ones.
Yeah, and there may be other powers that we didn't get to tonight that would have more impact on that. And definitely, I feel like, okay, so, we just played with two kind of base sets, and in one of the sets, you really had a lot of manipulation in the capital cards on, I think it was the blue one? I don't know, one of the colors you could manipulate. And then in the second set, we played a different one of the colors let you manipulate the capital a little bit. And I think I could see a situation where you've got 3 or 4 powers that all let you manipulate the capital. And when you're doing a lot more manipulation, and you've got to okay, somebody just dragged something big down, and then I've got to play a low card in order to stay within, or, I think there's maybe more opportunity for the numbers, the variance in the numbers to be more significant than just saying, hey, I want a 4, 5, or 6 versus a 2 or 3. So, I mean, the game's going to change a lot based on the player powers that are out there. And I think that's definitely one of the neat things about it, going back to that. Any other mechanisms you guys think are worth noting here?
No, I just want to correct myself. I said we played with the A set first. That was correct. And we played actually with the C set first. So if anyone's taking notes out there, it was the C set in the second game.
That's right. Okay. Sounds good. The only other thing I'll just note is that this is kind of an interesting game for a pretty traditional card game, in that basically most of the information is public. I really do think that the player powers are pretty important here. If they didn't exist, it wouldn't be a whole lot of a game. But I think that the player powers do make it into a pretty interesting game, because those things do, when you play to the capital city, something's going to happen that is going to change things around, and you can play with.
Did you hear that, Chris? I think Tim is coming over to the enjoyed the game side. I think he's leaning my way. We'll see.
Yeah, I think he went into it that way, so I'm not that fooled.
All right, so let's jump into the production. And Adam, why don't you start? Anything that stands out to you in the production of this game?
Well, the first thing that drew me to the game was the artwork. Quanchi Moria does the art on these cards, and it's fantastic. My only complaint is that there's only 4 different pictures. There's a few other ones that may or may not make it into the game, but the basic card set, the basic suits, are just 4 colors and 4 pictures of the artwork, which is phenomenal. The back of the cards are cool too, and there's a couple other suits that we didn't get to, little variants with the other capital powers. So the production, it looks, it's small, it's clean, the art's nice, and the bits look nice. I think it's metal coins. I'm gonna stop rambling right there and let you guys go.
Yeah, I'll just say I agree with you on the art. It looks really nice. Same thing. I think it would be really cool if maybe, just each suit had multiple pictures per number. That would have, you still wouldn't have had to have like 100 different pieces of art, but it would have nice to have 30 pieces of art in there would have been cool. That would have been, it at least add a little bit of variety and enjoyment into looking at the cards. Because when we first started playing and I saw those cards laid out there, I was like, these are cool pictures. You're kind of thinking, what does that person do? Like, who is that person? They've got these unique costumes and unique accessories, and they just look badass. They're cool characters. But then after you've seen them a few times, they kind of blend into the background. It's beautiful art, but you're just not getting variety to kind of focus on. But I will jump over to a different production point, just that it seems like a lot of the special powers that the capital brings adds unique components. Many of the special powers add unique components. Like one of the special powers added its own deck of cards. Another one added these little yellow tokens that you could double your score on a particular card. And then you mentioned the coins, and and then the other one ordered another score track. And I think that's pretty cool, where, you probably don't have to do that, but and maybe it overcomplicated things, as Chris mentioned, but it was fun to be able to play with some different bits every game. And I could see that, blending up every time. So I enjoyed the variety in the different pieces that came with the different player powers. So that was something I liked about the production. What about you, Chris? Anything to say about the production?
Yeah, let me say something really out of the box here and say the art was great, but there wasn't enough of it. Since nobody said that yet. But no, I mean, Exact same thing. The art was lovely. I thought it was great. It was beautiful. I wanted to see more of it. But I mean, you basically had 4 pictures. I mean, you got more variation than that in a card deck or in an Uno deck. I mean, that was a bummer. That really bummed me out, especially because it teases you by having the bits that are there are so nice. I mean, to Tim's point about the additional components that come in when you add those superpowers in the middle, I noted that deck that comes in, the special deck, has the same exact pictures as the standard deck. The only thing that is different is the numbers, and that's a bummer.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough, Chris. Chris, what about the theme? Because you've been raving about the theme all night. So what did you think about the theme of Capital Lux 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my comments, thus far have probably tipped you off to my thought on that. Like I said, it was about as themed as a deck of playing cards, with the minor variation that there's the people on them have cool costumes.
Yeah, so that's what I think. I think it's worth noting that this is a playing card deck. I mean, it's a card game, and it's the fact that there is any theme. I think we can consider a bonus. It's icing on the cake. Because there doesn't have to be, right? How many great card games have you played? For me, Blackjack, Texas Hold'em Poker, and Hearts, like I mentioned, are 3 of my favorites. I could play those games into infinity. And there is no theme. There's nothing at all with it. There's still good games though. So in this case, it's different than when you're talking about we're trying to fit all these different things that are going on, and you have to have a theme that kind of ties it together and helps you understand the rules. This is a simple card game. So the fact that they gave us any theme at all, I feel is just a bonus. I don't disagree that it'd be awesome if they had managed to make something more thematic here, but that's just not what this game is. So I think that's, important to remember. And it's not the type of game that we're usually playing, and definitely not the type of game that we've reviewed here before. So it's a different standard that I would hold it to. What do you think about that, Adam, as far as, thematics in a game like this?
I understand your guys' complaints, and I agree with them to a point, but at the same time, the art does kind of draw me into this world that, that's like a futuristic kind of sci-fi world. I do get kind of drawn in looking at the guys and what they're holding, and like the mint. So what do we have? We have the rebels, the spirituals, the nobles, and the scientists. They all kind of have their own little look and feel, and then just the little components, the rockets on the Discovery track there. You got the outsider guys that we didn't play with those guys tonight, but they look kind of cool too with their little slew of weapons or whatever arsenal they have going on there. So just, I do agree with you to a point, but yeah, the art does kind of draw me in just enough to give me that sense of, oh, this is pretty neat. This isn't just a standard deck of cards. It's something just a little extra. So I do get that from the game for sure.
Yeah, and that was my point, is that I feel I was fine with what theme was there, because for the type of game it is, you don't need to have a theme. You don't expect too much, and it was kind of neat that there was a little bit going on there. So that was my point, is that the not having much theme wasn't a big negative for me in this case.
Well, then I agree with you.
All right, cool. Anything else on the production side that you guys would like to call out?
No, I will say we were on the TTS mod tonight. As far as that goes, it's pretty nice. Maybe a little.
It was Tabletopia. Not.
Thank you. Yeah, correct. Maybe a little crowded, but I don't know how else you would do it without making it too big to mouse around and look at everybody else's stuff. So that was a decent mod, I thought. Nice setup. It lets you set up with either any set of tiles, or you can do a random set of tiles. So that was kind of nice too.
I have one more comment on the production, and that has to do with the usability. The rules book seemed really nice. The appendix seemed really nice. Everything was pretty clearly laid out. We were able to learn it quickly and reference everything quickly. But the iconography that they used in the game, the special action tiles and the special components, was pretty useless. I don't know if you played a little bit, maybe that would be very clear, but I didn't think it was, I don't know. The tiles, the special action tiles, were big enough to maybe even put a little sentence of text that explained a little bit more, that probably would have been more useful than the couple of strange icons that were on there. So for me, the iconography here didn't work at all, but the rule book and the appendix solved all those problems. So pretty easy to get the hang of. I really didn't even look at the icons. Once we knew what the powers did, I just tried to remember from what the color was and what that special power was that matched up. But when I would go back and look at the icon, it didn't help me try to figure out what was going on for the most part. So that was my feelings on it.
I'll do a little bit of pushback. By the end of the second game, I started to get it. You have the kind of the player powers reference. The symbol for the capital was a little confusing at first, but then you see it's the bigger black building with the 4 color suits underneath it, and then a symbol for your own, what's it called, your home base is just a little flattened computer chip looking thing. The symbol for the draw deck has like the little dude with, I don't know, cards in it. So it started coming together for me by the end of the second game. I started to pick up on it.
But would you say that it was like sensible? Like, could you look at it and understand what it was before reading the rule book? And, you know,
so no, to compare it to Whistle Stop, maybe I got a similar feel from Whistle Mountain, or again, a similar feel from like Gaia Project. Maybe this is just a notch, somewhere between Whistle Mountain and Gaia Project, I'll say.
All right. Well, I think that can wrap up the production conversation here. So let's talk about moments in the game. Anything that stood out to you guys? Chris, got anything tonight?
Yeah, when we played 2 games, and at the end of the first one, where I think that I had probably screwed up about 15 different rules and didn't even actually know where my scoring was coming from at the end of the game. I thought I had like 12 points, and in reality, I had 83, and ended up winning the game. With no relationship at all to how well I'd actually played intentionally, but I kind of got a smile out of that one.
All right on. I had just a couple moments in the first game. I did terrible. I didn't take a single bonus card. I think throughout the entire game, I ended up dead last, like by a long shot. Like I felt like I had no idea how to play the game. I knew the rules, but I didn't understand how everyone else was kicking my butt in the first game. Second game, it finally started to come together for me. And the first round, I ended up taking 3 of the 4 bonus cards. And that was just like, okay, now I got this. Now, I thought I really was rocking that game the whole time. And then Adam ended up, you took me by a few points at the end there. Was it?
I ended up with 90. I forget.
Oh yeah. And I think I ended up like at 83 or something. So you got a pretty decent lead on me there in the end. So that was also fun that I didn't really know. I felt pretty good. I thought I was going to like win the game handily and ended up not winning it. And that was fun. It was fun to know that there was that competition going on that I wasn't seeing.
I agree. I like that sense of, I thought I was doing pretty good, but I thought you're doing quite well as well. So I really didn't have, a good idea. I knew I had strong with the greens because you were marching up that track, and I knew I was taking a bunch. So yeah, it was nice. I felt like I was doing okay, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah. Any particular moments that stood out to you, Adam, other than just winning?
Oh, it was fun to see. It was fun to see Steve bust. So it came to, I played, somebody carded out. Maybe, I don't know, was it Chris or Tim? I think played the last card. So everybody gets to go one more time. And then the rest of cards, you're forced to play them. And then Steve was in the predicament where he had to play a card to the blue or the pink, and then either way would result in a bust one way or the other. So I think he chose the bust on 19 points instead of 20 points. So that was funny.
It was a little sad that we kind of kicked him when he was down, because he was probably already in last place, and then he was the one person that busted on the final round, and it pushed him even further. It was a little disappointing that there weren't more busts that happened over the course of the game. And then the fact that we didn't see a single bust in the 2 games other than one person on the final round was surprising after reading the rules and kind of knowing how the game plays. And maybe that was us playing a little bit too safely. And I think that's probably that. I think that may be there because obviously the points were coming from winning those round bonuses. That's where a lot of the point buildup was. And I think you'd probably be a little more aggressive about that after playing a few times and getting some experience with the game. And that's going to set you up to get hurt, to get someone takes 2 points away and out of the capital, and all of a sudden you've busted and you're going to lose that. So that's probably more likely to happen with more experience. But that was a little surprising.
Well, I'm just old and risk averse, so that's why I didn't even flirt with it.
All right, well, let's jump into our final question on Capital Lux, and that is, would you request to play the game again? So I'll start with you, Adam.
Well, my hat has been tipped, and I enjoy the game very much. And I would love to play this game and explore the different kind of player power options, and just really find the intricacies of the game and figure out how to force people into bust situations and kind of, yeah. Enough said about that. I enjoy the game and would love to play it again.
Nice. Chris, your hat's been tipped also. Would you request to play the game again?
Yeah, well, in case you couldn't tell, the answer is no. I would say this is probably my least favorite game that we've played for game night. And, and again,
Wait, does it take the lead on the Origin of Species for you?
On the Origin of Species? Come on.
it flew past on the Origin of Species. And again, I'm not saying that as just a pure bust on the game, because a lot of it has to do with taste. And,
it's not your type of game.
Yeah. Anybody who's listening to this, we probably kind of have an idea what each other's tastes are. And one of my things is, theme and whatnot. The one thing I do want to say that I was thinking about your comment, Tim, about, any little bit of, gloss of theme is an improvement. I don't necessarily agree with that. And that's like saying that you can improve on chess by making the pieces look like, Lord of the Rings and adding a new rule in, which I don't think is true. I think if you've got something that's clean and nice and maybe this would have actually been better to me if it was just a straight card game, but it was kind of like the tease of a little gloss of theme kind of made me feel like I was maybe getting into something. And then I felt let down when we actually started doing it. So for what it's worth, that one was, I just had a hard time getting enthusiastic about it.
Chris, I feel bad, man. I feel like I let you down, buddy.
No, it's we've all let each other down at one time or another, Adam. It's what we do.
All right. Well, I'll now tip my hat and let you guys know that. So I enjoyed the game tonight. I actually enjoyed playing it. And as I mentioned, I like some lighter card games. They're not my favorite, right? They're not usually my favorite go-to, but there are some that bring me back, and I'm happy to sit down and play them and just, have a couple drinks with friends and have some snacks and just sit there and play while we're chatting away. And I don't think this quite gets to that level. Like, I don't think this is going to be the Hearts for me or Texas Hold'em or whatever, that I would just go back and say, yeah, I could sit here and play it for 15 hours straight. But I did enjoy it. I would like to explore it more. But there are a couple of things that probably prevent me from saying that I would ask for it again. One was just the mathiness of it at by the end of our second game. And again, maybe, I don't know if it was due to the unique powers. I didn't notice it as much in the first game, but it felt like it did drag a little bit at the end for the type of game, the weight of game it is. It felt like there was a lot of downtime waiting for it to come back around to my turn as everybody was kind of mathing out all of the things out there. And so that didn't flow like I would want a game of this weight to flow. That's probably the biggest complaint I have, and probably the biggest thing that put me off. The other thing I would say, I guess, too, is that I did feel like it's one of those games where there was a little lack of agency. You could try to set yourself up the whole game. You could play all the right cards. You could draft exactly what you wanted, and you could play the cards in the right shape. And then someone can just, take it out from under you, or, they could have a 6 in their hand that you just can't count on, and that gets dropped at the end of the game and they've just taken the trick from you. That's pretty traditional from a standard game, I guess, from a game like that. But for some reason, it felt a little less like I had any control. Obviously, you can get surprises in a game like Hearts or a traditional trick-taking game, but this felt like I had a little bit less control or ownership over how my round went. I didn't feel like I ever had I really just made a bad move there. It was more like I played a card, it did something, and then somebody else did something, and I didn't win the round, So a little less agency than I like, and a little more too much calculation at the end and a little slow rounds. So I'm going to say I wouldn't request to play it again, but Adam, I would actually happily, if you ever said, yeah, I want to play this. Hey, we got 15 minutes at the end of the, or an hour at the end of the night. It took a little longer than 15 minutes, but if we had 45 minutes at the end of the night, let's play another round of Capital Lux and mix up some player powers. I'd love to explore some more of those player powers and see how they changed things and how they made the game flow a little bit different. So I wouldn't turn down a play of it, but I probably wouldn't request to play it again. So
sure.
That is my thoughts on it. All right. Well, I think that will wrap up our conversation on Capital Lux 2 Generations. Right after this, we'll jump in and talk about some things we're excited about this week. All right, so welcome back, and we're going to just chat about a few things that we're excited about in the world of board games tonight. Let's start with you, Adam. Anything that's got you excited? Anything that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, so I sent you guys the photo, High Frontier for All. Is that what it's called? High Frontier for All? I think it's called High Frontier 4th edition arrived Kickstarter, and the giant neoprene mat is just draped all over my table. And in my big table is not big enough, at least width-wise, to accommodate this mat. I'm looking forward to just opening that up. I got a little teach. It doesn't seem too complex, so I might investigate that, play a little solo two-handed mode or solo one-handed mode, and play around the game.
Does it have an actual solo mode to it, like an official solo mode?
Ooh, I'm going to look that up, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, the mat, you sent the pictures. It looks beautiful, man. I mean, I'm really intrigued by what the game has to bring. And if you do get through a game of it yourself and you feel like it's, something they could knock out in 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours, I'd be really interested in playing it at some point. If you tell me, the short game takes 8 hours, I'll probably skip on it. But it looks like a really fun thing to explore a little bit.
It is very much, and it's very, very well themed, Chris.
Yeah, very visually impressive.
Board Game Geek does say, I'm here checking it out. It does say 1 to 5 players, so there allegedly is some kind of solo mode. Also, the weight is listed at 4.72 out of 5.
Wow, that's high. That's higher than anything I've played, I think. I can't think what the highest. I probably played something close to a 4, but 4.75. That's pretty high on the scale there. So,
just pulled up On Mars. 4.62 is On Mars.
Oh, okay. Well, we played On Mars. Okay. That's definitely manageable. It's a little bit of a crunch to get into, but that's not too much higher.
Yeah.
I guess I just can handle more complexity than I gave myself credit for.
There you go.
What about the other components in the game, Adam? I'm curious. Like, you got that beautiful neoprene map, but I didn't really see any of the other pieces. Is it a lot of cardboard, or do you have other interesting components in there?
So there's a lot of cardboard. There are some minis. There's cool little, I don't know, they're cool to me. Just little rocket ships, like your solid boosters or whatever. And then some satellite looking things that cruise around. And then I don't know what this other thing is, like a funky looking probe. It's a little set of miniatures that comes. And I think besides that, a bunch of cardboard is my guess.
Lots of little chits, little pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm browsing through some more pictures here, so I'll have an update in a moment.
Are there individual player boards as well? Like, do you have some kind of board you're playing on in front of you, or is everything done out on the neoprene mat?
There is a board on front of you, yeah. So you have your kind of like your fuel chart for your individual rocket. You're going to be having a little tableau of cards where you're going to build your spaceship. So here we go. We got a handful of cardboard, little punch outs and chits, and a bunch of cards. That the ones I've seen are like your thrusters or your life support system or your crew capsule or your different components to a spaceship that you might have that involve from launching up to getting to a place to having like a little buggy on that place to exploring around to being able to. So anything that might be involved in that is kind of contained in this set of cards that you put on your player board.
Nice. That's cool. I'd love to see it all put together and understand how it plays a little bit. Even if I don't end up playing it at some point, I'd love, once you get into it and learn how to play it, I'd love to hear a little bit about the mechanisms, kind of the recap of it. Pretty fascinating.
Sure.
What about you, Chris? Anything new that's got you excited or old?
Well, it's been a big week for games for me. I finally, after quite a bit of time, got my copy of Marvel United delivered to me, and I won't say anything about it. I'll maybe save that for another time to get into any details. But I did get a chance to play it, and I was thrilled to do that. And not only that, but I got 2 shipping notifications this week for Tungaru and Fossilis, which I'm super thrilled about. Fossilis in particular was one of my top 5 that we talked about in our top 5 episode. And that should be waiting on me in Connecticut when I get there in a few weeks from now. And I'm looking forward to busting that out and taking a look at it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I actually had just seen someone drop the new review or how to play video on Tungaru too, and I thought about you. I knew that one was on your backlog as well. So I was curious if you had it.
Chris, what's Tungaru about?
It's a worker placement Euro themed on Pacific Islanders exploring islands and developing villages, I believe, and conducting trade, that sort of thing. It looks really neat. I like the theme of the island exploration. It looked like an interesting, nicely produced game. So that was one of the ones I picked up.
Yeah, some really cool, beautiful artwork if you haven't seen it yet. Very reminiscent of Moana style.
Moana.
Yeah, exactly. Which of course it's the same theme, but it has some of that same style, which to me I think is really great. It's beautiful, colorful and Cool. I'm excited to hear about that one, Chris. I'd love to try that out. Anytime you say you got a Euro and you're getting excited about it, that gets me excited about it. So. All right, cool. Well, I've got just two quick things, and they're kind of repeats. I mentioned many times how much I'm excited about Dwellings of Eldervale, and that is delivered. It's coming to my house on Wednesday for sure, because it has been delivered to my old address, and I have some friends dropping it off for me on Wednesday. So I'm super excited to get that out of the box. I cannot wait to get it played. All the pictures, all the stories I've been hearing about it are just fantastic so far. So can't wait to get that one out, try it, play it a little bit. The other thing I just want to mention is, I think I can say this, but I am one of the play testers on the latest Eldervale expansion. And Eldervale is one of my favorite games. I've played it quite a bit. I was a play tester on a previous expansion as well. But I just want to say that I'm having a lot of fun with Eldervale right now. And I think the new expansion is something to really look forward to. So I won't say anything else beyond that. But yeah, lots of plays of it, and having a lot of fun with it right now. So that's all I have to say. Anything else from you guys today?
I was dying to see that the pictures from Dwellings of Eldervale. That just seems like it's going to be amazing. Awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely be rubbing it in your face as soon as I get it out of the box and start getting some photos taken.
I'm sure you will.
All right. I think that'll wrap up this episode of Board Game Hot Takes. So tell us what you thought of our takes on the games we played today. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.